Open any application that shows real-time flights and look at the map of the Earth. Before you, a pulsating living system appears, where thousands of yellow airplane silhouettes like fireflies slowly crawl across the digital globe. Europe seems covered by a dense carpet of routes. The North Atlantic looks like an overloaded highway during rush hour, and the eastern coast of China, Japan, and the Persian Gulf is immersed in air traffic, as if the sky there has darkened from congestion. It creates the impression that humanity has finally conquered the ocean of air, that for modern aviation with its satellite navigation, composite materials, and powerful engines, there are no longer any insurmountable barriers. But this impression is deceptive, and that illusion can be dangerous. Shift your gaze to the very heart of Asia, to the place where the Indian tectonic plate collides with tremendous force into the Eurasian plate, and you will see emptiness. A vast, unsettling space almost devoid of aircraft, a black void on the air traffic map, a region nearly the size of Western Europe, about 2 million square kilometers of cold silence. Tibet, Qinghai, the Tibetan Plateau. Pilots of major airlines such as Lufthansa, British Airways, and Singapore Airlines often draw enormous arcs around this region, bypassing it from the north or the south, burning dozens of tons of additional fuel, losing hours of time, and making tickets more expensive, yet preferring not to cross this invisible boundary directly. Passengers in the cabin are usually told a simple, reassuring phrase: "We are adjusting our course for safety reasons." Behind this dry wording lies a complex reality that still makes the palms of old-school pilots, who once flew propeller-driven aircraft, grow cold. Tibet is not just high mountains. It is a gigantic geophysical anomaly, a zone of atmospheric turbulence, a thermodynamic trap where standard emergency procedures, written in blood in Airbus and Boeing manuals, sometimes work very differently than they do over oceans and plains. Here, at altitudes where modern airliners usually cruise, the ground is too close. The sky here does not belong to humans. It belongs to wind, ice, and stone. There is an old story that flight instructors sometimes recount in a quiet voice, outside official protocols and training records. A story about why this region for many years earned a reputation as one of the most dangerous places for aviation. It is the story of a pilot who, many decades ago, abandoned caution, decided to shorten his route through a storm front, and saw something below that could make a person's hair turn gray within a single hour of flight. He did not see snow. He saw metal, an endless shining river of aluminum frozen into a glacier, an aluminum trail, the trace of one of the longest and quietest tragedies in aviation history, stretched over years. To understand the fear that many pilots still feel toward this region, we must return to the past. It was 1942. The Second World War was in full swing. The Japanese Empire captured Burma and cut off the Burma Road, the only land artery through which the Allies supplied China with fuel, weapons, and medicine. China was nearly isolated from the outside world. If the country fell, Japan could redeploy enormous forces to other fronts. The Allies were left with only one supply route: by air. American Command decided to launch one of the largest and riskiest transport operations in aviation history, an air bridge from India to China. Aircraft were to take off from airfields in the Assam Valley and fly over the eastern spurs of the Himalayas to the Chinese city of Kunming. Pilots quickly gave this route a short name: the Hump. They had to fly over some of the highest mountains on the planet. They were equipped with C-46 Commando and C-47 Skytrain transport aircraft, the legendary Dakotas. These were reliable machines of their time, true workhorses of the war, but they had not been designed for flights at extreme altitudes. The cabins were not pressurized, weather radar did not exist, and the de-icing systems consisted of rubber boots on the wings that inflated to break off ice. Yet in Himalayan icing conditions they often failed. Pilots flew almost blindly, navigating between the highest mountains on Earth. They took off from sweltering Indian jungles where temperatures reached 40 degrees Celsius and humidity was nearly 100%, and within an hour found themselves in icy high-altitude conditions where temperatures could drop to -40 and winds reached hurricane strength. Such temperature shock destroyed metal, rubber, and the human psyche. It was during 1943 to 1945 that the grim legend of the aluminum trail emerged. The losses were catastrophic. Pilots grimly joked, "In clear weather, we do not need a compass or a map. We simply follow the shine of the wreckage below." Aircraft crashed almost daily, sometimes several in a single day. Over 3 years of operations on the route, the hump, 594 aircraft were lost, and nearly 1,700 people were killed or went missing. That was more than the losses in some major naval battles of the war. Most often they were killed not by Japanese fighters, but by the very physics of Tibet, the weather, the altitude, and the mountains. One story tells of a night flight of a C-46 transport heavily loaded with barrels of aviation fuel and crates of ammunition. The aircraft was essentially a flying bomb. A night storm overtook the crew over the mountains. A monsoon cyclone, intensified by the mountain terrain, turned the sky into chaos. The radio compass malfunctioned due to magnetic anomalies, and iron-rich mountains distorted the instruments. The aircraft was pushed sideways by crosswinds exceeding 150 miles per hour, flying crabwise and constantly losing its course. Trying to find a break in the clouds and avoid collision with unseen peaks, the pilot entered a powerful updraft. The 20-ton aircraft was thrown upward like a dry leaf and reached an altitude where the engines began to choke from lack of oxygen. At that moment, the clouds parted. The full moon illuminated the landscape with a cold blue light. The pilot expected to see snowy peaks, but instead he saw a gigantic gorge whose walls rose for kilometers, and at the bottom there was a metallic glow. It was not snow. It was metal, fuselages of transport planes, torn-off wings, tail sections, fragments of bombers lying in layers, some already covered with snow, others still shining with fresh aluminum. The gorge had become a true aerodynamic trap into which air currents could pull aircraft that had lost control. Glaciers and permafrost preserved them for decades. The pilot managed to guide the aircraft out of the gorge and return to base, but that flight remained the most terrifying memory of his life. Over time, many such stories turned into legends, yet the harsh reality of mountain flying was indeed extremely dangerous. Today, aviation has become much safer. Airliners are equipped with pressurized cabins, sophisticated navigation systems, weather radar, and satellite communication. However, the features of the Tibetan Plateau are still taken into account when planning routes. The main problem is the elevation of the terrain. In the event of cabin depressurization, an aircraft must descend quickly to an altitude where people can breathe without oxygen masks. Over oceans or plains, this is simple. But over a high plateau, safe altitudes may remain significantly higher than usual. In addition, powerful jet streams pass over the Himalayas. When fast air currents collide with a massive mountain barrier, mountain waves and severe turbulence can form, sometimes even in clear weather. Added to this are extremely low temperatures that can affect fuel systems and aerodynamics. All of this does not make flights impossible, but it requires increased caution. That is why many international routes prefer to bypass the region, choosing more convenient air corridors. The next time you see a strange arc in the route of your flight, remember that this detour is connected not with mysteries or mysticism, but with the real laws of geography and the atmosphere. Even in the era of high technology, aviation still respects the forces of nature, and some regions of the planet remind us of the limits of human capability. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? Please share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.